So next up on the show, we have Chris Jones from CJ Learning. Welcome to the show, Chris. How are you doing?
I'm very well. Thank you very much, Mark and Al. It's a pleasure to be here.
Very great to have you on the show. Given we're a little bit behind time already, with your forbearance, can we just jump straight into the first question? Is that okay?
Yeah, of course it is. Yes.
Brilliant. Thanks, Chris. So look, what is your solutions? What is CJ Learning? I'm guessing it's something to do with you, given your initials.
Yeah, CJ Learning started as a consultancy with me working with schools. I'm as several of your guests this evening, I'm a career teacher, had taught for 25 years. It's now 37 years involved in the education profession. I'd been involved in leadership in schools, and when I got to that point of leading school and at the start of the academy process, I got involved in sort of satellite work, working alongside other schools. And I guess one of the issues that I found very quickly is a lot of people started saying we can't afford this stuff. And a lot of the people that were around me were saying that we haven't got enough money. We can't afford to step into some of these new things. We want to innovate, but we just don't know how it's going to work within the culture of the school that we have, the practices that are embedded. So a lot of, I guess it's a lot of background work that we were doing, but, in the back room of, how do we put schools together? So CJ Learning started moving around the country, and we started analysing schools in terms of the way that they are structured, primary and secondary, not just the secondary market. And then SRMAs started coming through with the work that Lord Agnew did within the department. And then we have this thing called Integrated Curriculum and Finance Planning that appeared on the agenda. As I'd been working with schools, we had been developing this, let's get a bit smarter about how we put things together. Let's start looking at how schools are constructed, how our groupings work. Or, we're all quite used to going to the teacher toolkit on the EEF site and looking at some of the research that's there about class sizes and strategies of putting school together. So I was doing the work on a spreadsheet. But as a lot of people find, this sort of data analytics, again, as somebody else commented this evening, it's just another thing that's in the background going on, and how useful it is and how accurate it was. We partnered up with a fairly significant data analyst group called Live Dataset, offered by Crescendo. And they worked with us to create a platform which we call SMARTcurriculum. As I said a moment ago, this is this whole idea about being smart about the way we put schools together. So with the agenda of the SRMA and the ICFP work going on in the background about school efficiency, I began to sort of say to head teachers and trust leaders, we're concentrating on this procurement process where we're looking at 20% of the finances. So we're buying our photocopiers and our contracts and all of the swimming pools, and can we afford the chemicals, and should we stop swimming because it's costing too much? And I started saying, well, actually, that's only 20% of the money. Why aren't we looking at the 80%? Why don't we start looking at how that, the assumptions that we make about, the way classes are put together and the way that we construct our schools? Where schools, and particularly I, in 2009, 2010, I was involved in an academy creation that was innovative, and the DFE were questioning us as to whether, is this going to work? Can you financially make it work? So I'd got used to that idea of modeling. So what we do is we take that modeling technique around the country. And, sadly, a lot of the schools we start with are in deficit budgets, and they want to return to a viable position. And I can say that every school we've worked with has come to that position where they see, savings of 300, 400, 500 to £1,000 to £1 million. I think our most significant change was a 1.3 million in the deficit that we were able to help them support and turn around, because practices that were going on in the school hadn't changed in years. Without naming, 25 years of practice that had never been questioned. And the school we're still working with are, every time I go in, the head says, I'm just so grateful. It's such a pleasure to see what we didn't understand, and now we're making the difference. But what we see, and the greatest pleasure, is that children are now getting the education they deserve. They're getting resources in front of them that they couldn't afford, that the school couldn't afford before. Teaching teams and school leadership teams are now understanding the finances and the way we put schools together in a way But they say, well, this is empowering. And I've got one trust leader that says, I've never had so many deputy heads coming and ask me to get involved in finance meetings because they understand what they're doing now. And that's no criticism, but we just don't train school leaders in that process in the way we should be. So it's sorry, as other people have said, we can talk for hours on this, but that's where we're at. And I'm really passionate about releasing funds to make these things possible for our children, whether it be SEN or whether it be high performance. It's all possible.
Chris, I'm going to suggest that, and I'm asking a question that I sorely hope I've already figured out the answer to. But you're not offering a service and expecting schools to wait until they get an FNTI before they give you a call.
Oh, absolutely.
No, this is something that any schools that want to look at benchmarking and optimizing.
Absolutely. I will say we work with some high performing schools that one, they want to stay there, and two, they want to build the narrative about how we invest in our children and our staff. And we've got some really great examples and case studies of high performing schools that are using the process to that effect. It isn't just about FNI, deficit budget declaration. It's about staying viable and resourcing well.
Okay, brilliant. So anybody listening in who thinks that sounds like something we need to unpick a bit further, how can people get in touch with you, Chris?
Well, come onto the website, cj-learning.com, go to the contact us, book a demonstration, book a call with us. We can talk through with you. At CJ Learning is our Twitter handle. There are lots of other methods, but they're the easiest ways to get hold of us. But as somebody else said earlier, we're happy to sit down and talk to you, Zoom, Teams, whatever. Just have a conversation with us, because every school is different and every need is specific.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Chris. Good to see you.
Absolute pleasure. Nice to meet you, and great to wish you well.
Thank you.
No, thank you so much, Chris. So important. Thank you.
Thank you.
Another great solution service. One thing we always like on our evening shows is the great mix and diversity of different types of products and services that really cover the gamut for schools. So,
yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the things that Chris said, I think really highlights the need there, because lots of school leaders don't come from a financial background. We see it with education technology, and teachers that don't come from a background where they know about infrastructure and Wi-Fi and all these things. And so,
no, absolutely.
And the same is true with finance. Not every teacher did a business and economics degree like I did, or a maths degree, and even maths doesn't set you up in the best way for these sort of things either, does it? So
No,
it sounds like a great solution, and kudos to Chris, because I mean, what greater reward can there be than being able to actually have that impact and help turn a school around in that sort of way? So brilliant. Thank you very much indeed, Chris.